At the concubine selection ceremony, Crown Prince Ethan Xianyuan presented the jade Rui scepter to Wendy Lin, the Grand Tutor's daughter of a concubine. The presumed crown princess, became a laughingstock. In my days, a row of bullet comments suddenly popped up before my eyes. Dear protagonist, don't worry, the male lead just wants to see you pout and wipe away tears. Exactly. The crown prince is still an immature child. He teases whoever he likes. Dear protagonist, just snatch the jade Rui scepter back. The crown prince adores your feisty antics. Oh, then he's quite the jerk. I smiled faintly and, under the varied gazes of the crowd, straightened my robes and knelt. Your humble servant wishes the crown prince and his future crown princess eternal harmony and blissful union. At my words, Ethan Xuanyuan's arrogant, triumphant smile instantly froze on his face. Even the empress seated at the head of the hall grew visibly displeased. The emperor had more than one son. Though Ethan Xianyuan held the title of legitimate heir, he was far less favored by the emperor than the third prince, born of consort Chen. It wasn't until my marriage to Ethan Xianyuan was settled, with the backing of the general's manor behind him, that his position as crown prince became secure. Today's concubine selection banquet was merely a formality. All that remained was for Ethan Xianyuan to place the jade Rui scepter, symbolizing the status of crown princess, into my hands, and then we could request the imperial decree for the official appointment. No one expected that Ethan Xianyuan would deliberately humiliate me at such a critical moment. The venue fell into a dead silence, so quiet you could hear a pin drop, making the sudden appearance of bullet comments before me seem especially jarring. Oh my god, what's happening? How could dear protagonist let the crown prince marry someone else? Does the protagonist even have a heart? Don't you know how much the crown prince loves you? Quick, look up at him. He looks completely shattered. I didn't look up as the bullet comments urged, only hearing Ethan Xuanyuan's cold, slightly frantic voice from above me. Serena Sue, what did you say? Say it again. Such a fine person, yet going deaf at such a young age. What terrible luck. To ensure Ethan Xianyuan could hear me clearly, I cleared my throat and raised my voice, enunciating each word deliberately. Your humble servant Serena Sue wishes the crown prince and crown princess eternal harmony and a blissful union. After speaking, I turned to Wendy Lin, who had just given me a triumphant, provocative glance, and said gently, Crown Princess, why not promptly kowtow to thank His Highness the Crown Prince and Her Majesty the Empress for their grace? Wendy Lin deeply loved Ethan Xianyuan and had often used her father's position as Grand Tutor to approach him, sparing no effort in her attempts. Unfortunately, as the daughter of a concubine, under normal circumstances, she wouldn't even qualify to be a secondary consort, let alone crown princess, if she didn't seize this chance, a dream she never dared to have. While Ethan was being foolish, what was she waiting for? Well, I suppose I'm just too kind-hearted. Friendly reminder, no need to thank me. Though Wendy Lin held deep hostility toward me, she wasn't completely brainless and understood that my words were indeed for her benefit. Instantly, she tightly grasped the jade Rui scepter and knelt straight down. Your humble servant expresses deepest gratitude for Crown Prince's favor and Empress's grace. I shall dutifully uphold the responsibilities of Crown Princess and fully support the Crown Prince. This scene unfolded in complete opposition to Ethan Xuanyuan's expectations. With every word Wendy Lin spoke, his complexion darkened further, until it turned as black as a pot's bottom. He didn't even glance at Wendy Lin, instead fixing a trembling, intense stare upon me. Serena Sue, how dare you? I looked at him with utter bewilderment. Why wouldn't I dare? Offering congratulatory blessings violates no penal code. Even if he were the emperor himself presiding, he could find no fault in my words. You, Ethan Xuanyuan's eyes burned crimson, as if flames might erupt any moment. His devouring glare made it seem as though I were the betrayer in this engagement. Crown Prince. The selection of a crown princess is no occasion for jest. Having seen enough drama, the Empress finally spoke, clearly displeased with my performance. Though chastising the crown prince, her displeasure remained firmly directed at me. Serena Sue, you are the future crown princess. Even if you had a disagreement with the crown prince, it should have been resolved privately. How could you add fuel to the fire out of spite at such a time? Is this how the Sue family raises their daughters? The Empress is quite clever. With a light remark about Ethan Xianyuan and I having a private disagreement, she turned his petty act of deliberately humiliating me into a shared fault between us. This way, even if the Emperor investigates, we would both be punished together, and I could not escape blame. Since I cannot escape, I must settle the matter peacefully, as if I am, after all, the daughter of a general's family. Where did the Empress get the idea that I am so easy to bully? Your Majesty jests. Your humble servant is too lowly to dare have disagreements with His Highness the Crown Prince. As for adding fuel to the fire out of spite, nothing could be further from the truth. I am genuinely happy for His Highness and Miss Lin. I prostrated myself on the ground, deliberately putting on a fearful and reverent appearance. Yet my tone left no room for concession. Since His Highness the Crown Prince has given the jade Rui scepter to Miss Lin, she is the rightful crown princess. Your Majesty's earlier remark about this humble servant being the future crown princess is something I dare not accept, lest it spread and the people of the great show Dynasty mock our imperial household for being as fickle as children at play. Just by observing how confidently the Empress reprimanded me, it's clear she likely knew in advance that Ethan Xianyuan would pull such a stunt, yet she tacitly allowed it, for no other reason than to seize this chance to put me in my place. After all, with the crown prince's position at court steadily solidifying over these years, the mother and son have grown arrogant enough to believe they no longer need the support of the general's manor. On the contrary, it is the general's manor that must now curry favor with the crown prince to secure my position as crown princess. The humiliation they deliberately subjected me to at the concubine selection banquet was merely the beginning. If I swallow my pride and endure this injustice silently, countless more troubles will await me throughout the wedding proceedings. Not to mention, since Wendy Lin has accepted Ethan Xianyuan's jade Rui scepter, she naturally cannot marry anyone else now. The Empress will undoubtedly use the excuse of preserving her reputation to righteously force me to accept her position as secondary consort. Whoever wants to endure such humiliation can go ahead. I won't tolerate a single bit of it. Hearing my words, the Empress's face darkened repeatedly before she could speak again. Ethan Xianyuan's furious voice pierced my ears first. Fine, Serena Sue, you're something else, truly refusing to yield until you see the coffin. Since that's the case, don't blame me for not sparing your dignity. Dignity? My dignity was utterly shattered the moment he deliberately bypassed me to give the jade Rui scepter to Wendy Lin, shattered beyond repair. Ethan Xianyuan cupped his hands toward the Empress, looking as if he were grinding his teeth. Mother, I have admired Wendy Lin for years and always regarded her as the only candidate for crown princess. This is noist. I beg for your blessing. Hearing this, I nearly burst out laughing. Before this, there was still room for things to change. Even if I refused to become the crown princess, there were other noble ladies present eager to win Ethan Xianyuan's favor, who would gladly accept that jade Rui scepter. He would still have a powerful wife's family to rely on, just one slightly less influential than the general's manor. But now that these words have been spoken, there is no possibility of changing them. He has no choice but to marry Wendy Lin, who lacks any family background, as his official wife. Otherwise, the royal family would be seen as breaking their word and become a laughingstock. The bullet comments heated up again. Poor male lead. Why can't the female lead understand his painstaking efforts? He's about to explode with anger. Dear protagonist, please don't misunderstand. The crown prince doesn't love Wendy Lin at all. He's filled with regret and wishes he could kick her out right now. If you just humble yourself and beg him, he'd even give you his life, as expected of the foolish male lead, offering nothing but worthless things no one wants. The Empress shot Ethan Xianyuan a warning glare. signaling with her eyes for him to stop. Compared to her precious son, she grew even more hostile toward me, her future daughter-in-law, who dared to contradict her publicly, and her tone turned increasingly harsh. Serena Sue, are you certain you wish to continue this feud with the Crown Prince? You were once betrothed to him. If he truly rejects you, your future will be a life of lonely devotion. What? The sole daughter of the general's manor, destined for a life of lonely devotion? Now, I understand why Ethan Xinyuan is so blindly arrogant. It's inherited from the Empress. This mother-son pair really has their heads in the clouds. But even more delusional behavior was yet to come, seeing that I showed no intention of yielding or pleading, not even sparing him a glance. Ethan Xinyuan grew, increasingly furious and humiliated. He took a deep breath and turned to the Empress once more. Mother, by tradition, the Eastern Palace should have one principal consort and two secondary consorts. Why not take this opportunity to select the secondary consorts today? The Empress, sharing the same intent, shifted her displeased gaze from me and remarked meaningfully, indeed, the Crown Prince should use his discerning eye to choose. There will always be those who know their place. With that, she signaled to the matron beside her, who promptly had attendants bring forth two exquisite pink sachets embroidered with circular patterns. Ethan Xinyuan made no selection, simply taking a sachet from the tray and walking straight toward me. Wait, what does this mean? Could he actually dare to consider making me a secondary consort? It turned out Ethan Xinyuan truly had the audacity. He didn't even bother handing it over, just tossed the sachet onto the floor tiles before me. Ethan Xinyuan still wore that same arrogant, disdainful expression. Serena Sue, from this day forward, you are my secondary consort. Henceforth, abide by your duties as a concubine and serve the Crown Princess well. If you harbor even a trace of defiance or disrespect toward her, do not blame me for disregarding our years of affection and punishing you severely. As he spoke, he deliberately emphasized the words concubine, ensuring I felt the humiliation of being publicly demoted from wife to consort. One should strike, but not the face. Ethan Xinyuan's actions were practically grinding my dignity into the dust. As his words fell, the gazes of over 20 court ladies instantly focused on me, some pitying, some sympathetic, but most gloating with schadenfreude. Those with poor composure even snorted in barely suppressed laughter. After all, no one had ever seen the legitimate daughter of a general reduced to serving under the daughter of a concubine from a fifth-rank official's household. Truly, you live long enough to see everything. Ethan Xinyuan continued looking down at me arrogantly, as if waiting for a stray kitten or puppy to fawn at his hem for favor. Unfortunately for him, his wishful thinking was doomed to fail. Not only would I never beg him, I nearly couldn't stop myself from slapping him across the face. How blind I must have been before to fall for such scum. Seeing my reddened eyes, the viewers in the bullet comments, unaware I was seething with rage, mistook me for a lovesick fool pining over Ethan's indifference and rushed to comfort me. Dear protagonist, please don't be sad. I swear the male lead never meant for you to become a concubine. If you just accept the sachet, he'll immediately retrieve the jade Rui scepter from Wendy Lin for you. In royalty, there's only interest, no kinship. The male lead has always felt insecure. Only if the female lead stays by his side without caring about status or titles would it be true love. Indeed, this is just a small test from the male lead to the female lead. Once she passes it, sweet days of mutual affection will follow. Why do some idiots always enjoy testing others' feelings? Little do they know, the moment they take that step of deliberate testing, the so-called feelings have already soured. As everyone knows, spoiled things should be discarded. As my thoughts raced, my eyes were already brimming with tears, yet I stubbornly refused to let them fall. I am unworthy of the Crown Prince's misplaced affection. I humbly beg your highness to retract your decree. Ethan Xinyuan, narrow-minded as he was determined to humiliate me with the status of a concubine to avenge my earlier defiance, never expecting I'd outright refuse. He was so angry his fingertips trembled slightly. Serena Sue, You have some nerve, daring to defy my decree. I paid no mind to the false accusations he was pinning on me, merely responding with neither humility nor arrogance. Your humble servant is undeserving of the crown prince's regard. I implore your highness to seek another more worthy. Serena Sue, as a noble woman from a prestigious family, you defy conventions and act recklessly without an ounce of grace or dignity, not even comparable to Wan's little toe. Granting you the position of secondary consort is already an exceptional honor. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Ethan Schwenyuan's dark eyes fixed intently on me, as though I were the treacherous villain who had betrayed his trust. Truly hypocritical, incompetent, and laughable, perhaps because the situation had spiraled completely beyond expectations. The bullet comments began chattering noisily once more. The male lead is as stubborn as a mule. He's practically on the verge of tears, worrying that the female lead might reject him. Yet he still spouts such angry words. Female lead, don't believe a word of this nonsense. He's filled with regret. If there weren't so many people around, he'd probably slap himself twice over. Exactly. The male lead is just too immature. Dear protagonist, please don't stoop to his level. Just act obedient and yield a little, and you'll have him wrapped around your finger in no time. Dear protagonist, let's be the bigger person and not hold a grudge against the male lead. The bullet comments rushed to explain and defend Ethan Schwenyuan, their urgency practically leaping off the screen. I could only find it laughable. Some men truly baffle me, idling away their days with no real purpose, obsessing over how to make women docile and submissive. Docile my ass. A torrent of curses swirled in my mind, yet remained unspoken. Gazing at Ethan's all too familiar face, my stomach churned with disgust. How could someone once decent suddenly rot like this? The thought had barely formed before I dismissed it. Nothing rots all at once. Ethan had been rotten to the core all along. He'd just hidden it too well, and I failed to see it in time. If anything, I should thank him for causing this scene at the concubine selection banquet. Had he revealed his true colors after marriage, my situation would have been 100 times worse. After all, since the founding of the great Zhou Dynasty, there has never been a crown princess who divorced. Once married, no matter how unwilling I am, I can only waste my life with Ethan Schwenyuan until death. Of two evils, choose the lesser. Thinking that I had already avoided such a miserable outcome, this small hardship before me seemed utterly insignificant. I did not fear Ethan Schwenyuan's humiliating threats, meeting his furious gaze with neither arrogance nor humility. As your highness the crown prince has said, your humble servant knows her own inadequacies in talent and virtue, unworthy of entering the Eastern Palace. What if I insist on making you a concubine? Would you dare defy the imperial decree? Could it be that the general manor looks down on the royal family and harbors rebellious intentions? Ethan Schwenyuan's tone dripped with venom, like a serpent hissing wildly at its prey. Not to mention, you've already become mine. Who would dare pick up the trash I've discarded? As if the humiliation wasn't enough. When uttering the word trash, Ethan Schwenyuan let out a few malicious sneers, making everyone believe I had lost my virtue before marriage. A woman's chastity is more precious than her life. If I were to disregard the dignity of a noble maiden and give myself to Ethan Schwenyuan before marriage, my future would indeed be a life of lonely devotion. Even if my father wished to protect me, he could not. No wonder the Empress was so confident when she warned me earlier. This was her scheme all along. How utterly vicious. Sure enough, this time I was met not only with whispers, but also with the young maiden's undisguised disdain and muttered curses, calling me shameless. How could this be? The Empress seemed to sense the barely concealed hatred in my eyes, and grew even more smug in her attempt to control me. Even as a concubine for the crown prince, she must be pure and flawless. No room for carelessness. Matron, take Miss Sue away for an examination. Given the malicious intentions of Ethan Schwenyuan and his mother, if I were dragged away for a forced examination, They could easily tamper with the tools and strip me of my innocence. By then, no amount of explanation would clear my name, and the general's manor would bear the blame for failing to discipline its daughter, shaming my father in the court. This must not happen. In mere moments, two grim-faced matrons with menacing scowls approached with ill intent to seize my wrists. Once caught by them, I would surely be unable to break free. Swift as lightning, to protect both myself and the honor of the general's manor, I stepped back abruptly and declared loudly, "The Sioux clan has long upheld ancestral teachings. Our women would rather remain unmarried for life than become concubines, and premarital impurity is absolutely forbidden. The crown prince, to force your humble servant into concubinage, resorts to slander to tarnish my virtue and make me defy our ancestors' will. I can only dash myself against the pillar of this hall to prove the unyielding spirit of the Sioux family." With that, I resolutely charged toward a nearby pillar. No one expected such fierce resolve from me. For a moment, all were stunned speechless. It was the Empress who reacted first, sharply ordering eunuchs and palace maids to stop me. Their scheme was to force me into concubinage, not to drive me to death. Ethan Xuanyuan's sudden change of the crown princess candidate was already a breach of faith. To publicly cause my death would be tantamount to declaring war on the entire general's manor. If it truly came to that, his future prospects would be completely ruined. The Empress would never allow such a thing to happen. When pushed to the brink of fury, one often unleashes an extraordinary surge of strength. For a moment, the two matrons couldn't hold me back, and I wailed even more miserably, screaming that I'd rather die. The palace has never been a united front. News of the concubine selection banquet would soon spread through the spies planted throughout the imperial harem. I was deliberately making the situation escalate. Since Ethan Xuanyuan showed no mercy, he shouldn't blame me for being ruthless. The bigger the scandal, the more his reputation would be tarnished, and the less support he'd garner in the court. After all, noble families have always stood together. If he could betray his wife and force her into concubinage today, he might double, cross, and eliminate the court officials who supported him tomorrow. No one would dare fully invest in such a master. The Empress signaled with her eyes, ordering the matrons to drag me into the room. Once inside that room, my innocence would be utterly destroyed. Must I truly suffer this unjust calamity? Just as despair set in, a voice dripping with playful irreverence drifted lazily from behind. "Congratulations, Crown Prince, on finding such a beauty. Truly enviable." The only person in the entire realm who could act so casually and without decorum before the Empress and Ethan Xuanyuan was the Emperor's most favored third son, Prince Chun, Liu Xuanyuan, with his mother titled Consort Chun and himself as Prince Chun. It was clear this mother-son pair held the Emperor's deepest affection, unmatched by anyone. The Empress's expression, already grim, turned even uglier the moment she laid eyes on Liu Xuanyuan. Even after years in the palace honing her acting skills, it took her several seconds to recompose her features. Though the Empress couldn't scold Liu Xuanyuan, the bullet comments were already ablaze, with people cursing him on her behalf. "Damn, the big villain is so disgusting, showing up just to mock the male lead, right? Everyone knows he's been pining for the female lead forever. But she only has eyes for the male lead, hasn't given him so much as a glance in years. Uffed. He doesn't admire the female lead at all. He just enjoys stealing the male lead's possessions. Dear protagonist, please don't be fooled by the big villain. The male lead's first act after ascending the throne was to eliminate him." The bullet comments continue to flash rapidly before my eyes. The sheer volume of information was overwhelming, making it hard to process everything at once. Prince Chun has admired me for years? No, that's not the main point. The real issue is, you're the one who's Ethan Xuanyuan's thing. Your whole family are things. Ethan Xuanyuan's hatred for Liu Xuanyuan surpassed even the Empress's animosity, and he lacked her capacity for patience. Or perhaps he'd grown overconfident, believing his power was now secure and no longer needing to restrain himself. Thus, with a cold expression and furrowed brow, he declared, This is my concubine selection banquet, yet you barged in without even greeting me. Third brother, do you hold no respect for me, the crown prince? With just one statement, Ethan Xianyuan had framed Liu Xianyuan for disrespecting the heir apparent. Indeed, Ethan and Liu had long been bitter rivals, each eagerly awaiting the other's missteps. Now that the opportunity presented itself, he naturally attacked with all his might. I lifted my gaze, seemingly unintentionally glancing at Liu Xianyuan. Consort Chen, having enjoyed the emperor's favor for years, naturally had eyes and ears throughout the imperial harem. It seemed spies had been planted at the concubine selection venue early on by Liu Xianyuan. Hearing such an absurd and sensational piece of news, he couldn't resist rushing over to join the excitement. Perhaps he ran too fast. Even his jade crown had come loose. Liu Xianyuan wasn't intimidated by Ethan Xianyuan's icy interrogation. Instead, his smile grew even brighter. Brother Crown Prince, what are you saying? I hold you in the highest esteem, but our relationship isn't just that of ruler and subject. We should be affectionate and fraternal, showing brotherly respect. Could it be that, in your heart, you care not a whit for sibling bonds? Now, that's an interesting remark. Throughout history, emperors have always feared their successors being cold-blooded and ruthless. For no other reason than this. There is only one throne, but an emperor has more than one son. He must select a new ruler with a kind and virtuous heart to ensure that after his passing, his other sons would also have a chance at survival. Little did he know, a certain empress of a previous dynasty, who enjoyed lifelong favor, lost her senses when the dying emperor held her hand to entrust his heirs. She declared that once her son ascended the throne, she would have all the old emperor's other sons executed. Enraged, the emperor mustered his last breath to recover, purged the arrogant empress and crown prince's faction, and instead cultivated a benevolent common-born son as his successor. If Ethan Xianyuan dared show even a hint of disregard for brotherly bonds, his standing in the emperor's eyes would surely plummet. Moreover, he was not the emperor's favored son to begin with, so he could not afford the slightest moral flaw. Ethan Xianyuan never expected that instead of successfully branding the other as defiant and disrespectful, he himself ended up with an even heavier accusation, his expression growing stiffer. Fortunately, he did not persist in his folly, and stiffly replied, "Of course not. It is precisely because I care deeply for my third brother that I am especially strict. As they say, spare the rod and spoil the child. Is it not? I fully understand the Crown Prince's kindness, which is why I've come specifically to congratulate you and Miss Lin on your happy union." Liu Xianyuan showed no anger at Ethan Xianyuan's unfriendly attitude, instead smoothly playing along with the narrative. "I've long heard that the Crown Prince and Miss Lin share deep mutual affection, having sworn multiple times to marry none but her. I thought it was mere rumor, but it turns out to be true." Upon hearing Liu Xianyuan's words, the bullet comments instantly erupted into a storm of curses. "Damn it, what is this damned villain spouting? When did our male lead ever have deep feelings for that green tea, White Lotus Wendy Lin? Exactly. Wendy Lin's only purpose is to make the female lead jealous. The male lead never gave her a second glance. Daring to break up our CP with such blatant lies, he deserves his tragic ending. CP? Though it's my first time hearing this term, I can roughly guess what it means after a moment's thought. That scumbag Ethan Xianyuan and I are mortal enemies. Not some CP. Don't even try to link us." Liu Xianyuan couldn't see the bullet comments, and thus had no idea that he, the Prince Chun who seemed to bask in endless adoration, was actually nothing but a universally despised cannon fodder character. He waved his hand, taking a pair of dragon, phoenix jade pendants from the tray carried by a panting young eunuch behind him, and offered them to Wendy Lin. "The Crown Prince, my elder brother, disregards status and lineage, seeking only a heart to heaven with his beloved, a model for all men under heaven. Not only do I admire him, but even Father Emperor holds him in high esteem, specifically sending me to deliver this congratulatory gift." Hearing this, the last trace of color drained from Ethan Xuanyuan's face. Though Ethan Xinyuan and I only had a verbal engagement, it was formally acknowledged before the emperor. Otherwise, it wouldn't have lasted all these years. The emperor, upon learning of his outrageous behavior, not only refrained from reprimanding or stopping him, but even bestowed dragon, phoenix jade pendants. This meant that whether the emperor was furious or calm, there was no turning back from what was happening now. He had truly gone too far this time. Ethan Xuanyuan's face darkened like the bottom of a pot, and the atmosphere grew eerily tense. Even Wendy Lin, who had been smug about outshining me, sensed something was wrong and froze, not daring to take the jade pendant. It was Liu Xinyuan who reminded her with a cheerful smile, "Crown Princess, won't you quickly accept Father Emperor's reward? Or are you dissatisfied with it?" Wendy Lin wouldn't dare shoulder such a grave accusation. She immediately knelt, accepted the jade pendant with both hands, and kowtowed in gratitude for the emperor's reward. Ethan Xinyuan was convinced this was all Leo's doing, glaring at him with such venom it seemed he wished to bore holes through him. The empress's expression was equally grim, watching the mother and son make fools of themselves. I had to recall every sad moment of my life to keep from bursting into laughter. As the saying goes, those who belittle others will eventually be belittled themselves. Everything they're facing now is exactly what they deserve. Only then did Liu Xinyuan seem to notice my presence, widening his eyes in surprise. "Miss Su, what happened? Who dares to humiliate you in broad daylight within the palace? Such lawlessness. Does Father Emperor no longer reign?" Though directed at me, these words were truly aimed at the Empress and Ethan Xinyuan. After enduring so much injustice, tears poured down like a floodgate had opened, soon turning into wailing sobs, as I recklessly made a dash toward the pillar again. Whether the bullet comments claiming he's admired me for years were true or not, the enemy of my enemy is my friend held undeniable truth. I had to appear as pitiful as possible before Liu Xinyuan. The emperor might not believe me, but he'd surely trust his most favored son. Ethan Xinyuan and his mother would not escape unscathed. Just as chaos erupted once more in the hall, a eunuch's shrill voice pierced through. "The emperor approaches." Soon, a figure in bright yellow robes entered the grand hall. Everyone dropped to their knees in salute. The emperor swept a cold gaze over the courtiers, his expression clearly displeased. Liu Xinyuan showed no fear, striding directly to the emperor's side and releasing a long, heavy sigh. "Father Emperor, you finally arrived. Had you been any later, Miss Su might not have survived." He recounted the recent events as casually as if sharing an amusing anecdote. Leo was eloquent, leaving out no crucial details and maintaining perfect impartiality. Yet by skillfully emphasizing certain points, he painted me as a pitiful woman utterly humiliated by the Empress and Crown Prince, driven nearly to suicide by collision with a pillar. The Emperor's face darkened further, his eyes blazing with anger as he glared at Ethan Xinyuan and the Empress. Still, he held his tongue, only scolding Leo with a half-amused reproach. "You've always had a flair for the dramatic. Boy, was it truly so dire?" Although my earlier collision was merely a desperate move for survival rather than a true death wish, the ordeal had left my hair bun loose and disheveled, while my carefully applied makeup was now streaked with tears. Truly a pitiful sight by any measure. Over the years, I have frequently visited the palace, and the emperor has always treated me kindly. Now, gesturing for me to rise, as I stepped forward, he spoke gently. "Ning, my child, I know you have been wronged. This was the Crown Prince's fault, and I will see justice done for you. These past few years, the Emperor has also witnessed my feelings for Ethan Xinyuan. His implication was clear. If I wished, the position of Crown Princess could still be mine. A child's misdeeds reflect the father's failure to teach. The Emperor had no desire to bear the blame for poor parenting. Your Majesty flatters me. The Crown Prince and Miss Lin share mutual affection, and your humble servant genuinely rejoices for them. Now and always, I will never interfere to invite disdain. I beg your Majesty to grant them this union." Truly? Absolutely true. Your humble servant kowtows in gratitude for your majesty's grace. So long as I express my thanks swiftly, the emperor could not go back on his word. In that case, your verbal engagement with the crown prince is hereby annulled. For slandering your virtue with baseless accusations, I shall punish him with 3 years' salary forfeiture and 1 month of confinement as a warning. Father Emperor, Ethan Shenyuan was utterly dumbstruck. He straightened his robes and knelt, about to speak, but was silenced by the emperor's icy glare. This punishment is already lenient, given the severity of the offense. Further public scandal would only damage the imperial family's dignity and lead to graver consequences. Subsequently, the empress was also punished with 1 month of confinement and stripped of her authority over the imperial harem. All palace affairs were henceforth entrusted to Consort Chen, having rivaled the empress for years. Consort Chen now held undeniable advantage, with the empress punished and powerless, unlikely to ever challenge her again. This was favorable news both for me and for Liu Xinyuan. Father Emperor is most wise. Liu Xinyuan eagerly lavished praise before sighing theatrically. Elder brother Crown Prince already has his crown princess, yet your son's princess consort remains nowhere in sight. It seems father intends for me to remain a bachelor all my life. You little rascal, always spouting nonsense all day long, because the crown prince position wasn't given to Liu Xinyuan as wished. The emperor always felt indebted to the son and granted his every request, saying with a smile, "Just tell me which young lady you fancy, and I'll arrange the marriage for you." Liu Xuanyuan's gaze fell upon me, his tone carrying unprecedented seriousness. Your son has long admired the eldest Miss Su, since brother Crown Prince failed to recognize her worth and caused her such great grievance. Our royal family ought to treat her well. It would be perfect to assign her to your son as princess consort. Ethan Xinyuan never expected Liu to say such words and was nearly infuriated to the point of vomiting blood. Dream on. Ninger would never marry you. Looking at Ethan, utterly repulsive in his rage, and then at Liu, composed and radiant like the moon after rain, I enunciated each word clearly. In reply to your majesty, your humble servant is willing, honored by Prince Chen's deep affection. The general manor holds significant military power and must be closely tied to the royal family. If I cannot marry Ethan Xinyuan, I must wed another member of the imperial family. Looking across the entire royal clan, there is no better choice than Liu Xinyuan. It would be even better if he has feelings for me. If not, as long as he gives me the respect due to a proper princess consort, I can live well, far better than enduring occasional humiliation by Ethan Xuanyuan's side. Naturally, the emperor was pleased with this outcome and, disregarding the objections of Ethan Xinyuan and the empress, immediately gave his approval. It's settled then. I shall draft the imperial edicts to bestow marriages upon both couples. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief and knelt alongside Liu Xinyuan to express gratitude for the imperial favor. Palace rules are strict. Now that I am the future princess consort of Chun, I must abide by royal etiquette at all times. The imperial household department dispatched a palanquin befitting a princess consort, along with a head matron and several palace maids, to escort me back to the general's manor with great pomp. Along the way, Ethan Xianyuan attempted to intercept me more than once, but each time he was stopped before he could get close. In contrast, Wendy Lin, also a bride, to be, was able to approach me more closely. She raised an eyebrow, her pride practically oozing from every pore. Miss Su waited all those years to become crown princess, only to end up as princess consort of Prince Chen. What a pity. But who could blame His Highness the Crown Prince when his heart belongs only to me? Watching Wendy Lin's smug expression, I couldn't hold back a snort of laughter. Wendy Lin, how you obtained your position as Crown Princess. Others may not know, but are you going to play dumb too? She wasn't foolish. She knew perfectly well that receiving that jade Rui scepter was just Ethan Xuanyuan's way of spiting me. But her pride would never let her admit it. Instead, she insisted on flaunting this non-existent affection right in front of me. Truly pitiful and ridiculous. No wonder Ethan Xianyuan chose Wendy Lin. She's just as useless as he is, unable to stomach even a word of truth. I couldn't be bothered to waste more words on her, and gracefully boarded the carriage to leave. Only Wendy Lynn's vicious, but clearly hollow taunts followed from behind. Serena Sue. We'll see about that. Let's see who gets the last laugh. The last laugh. Indeed, no matter what status she holds now, once Ethan Xianyuan ascends the throne, she'll rightfully become the empress, naturally overshadowing me, a mere princess consort. Unfortunately, I will never allow a faithless scoundrel like Ethan Xianyuan to claim the highest position, no matter the odds. I must fight with all my might. When father learned of the perilous scene at the concubine selection banquet, he was so furious he nearly coughed up blood. Just as he had once spared no effort to aid the crown prince, he now spared no effort to trip him up at every turn. Within mere days, memorials accusing the crown prince for various reasons piled up like a mountain in the court. The evidence, in black and white, was indisputable. The emperor was enraged, penalizing the crown prince repeatedly and even rebuking him harshly in public, showing no regard for face. Those ministers who had once steadfastly upheld the tradition of primogeniture, seeing the crown prince so unfit, no longer argued with the emperor over rights and laws. This was unprecedented, signaling that Ethan Xuanyuan's position as crown prince was now precarious. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. To avoid further entanglement with that ill-omened scoundrel Ethan, I secluded myself in the manor under the pretext of preparing my dowry. Liu Xianyuan frequently sent gifts under various excuses to supplement my trousseau: rare jewels, antique jades, estates, shops. The offerings were endless. He even included the deed to his own princely residence, practically emptying his coffers, leaving me both amused and exasperated. Good moods breed carelessness, and in that carelessness, Ethan found an opening, slipping unnoticed into the rear courtyard. Ninger, all these years, it's always been you I loved. My feelings for you have never wavered for a single moment. After just half a month apart, Ethan looked haggard and gaunt, his once well-fitted brocade robes now hanging loosely on his frame. He rushed over eagerly to grab my hand, but I recoiled and deftly avoided him. The pain in his eyes deepened, his voice choked with emotion. Ninger, I was wrong. During the concubine selection, it wasn't that I didn't want to give you the jade, Rui scepter. I just wanted to test your feelings for me. That's why I pretended to favor Wendy Lynn. Whether you had softened and pleaded with me, or thrown a fit out of anger, I would have changed my mind. But you didn't care at all. You even congratulated me with a smile. You were so furious you kept testing me, forcing me to become a secondary consort and live under Wendy Lynn's thumb for the rest of my life. No, that was all nonsense, I blurted out in a fit of anger. I love you so much. How could I ever truly let you lower yourself to be a concubine? You would. Facing Ethan Xuanyuan's increasingly panicked gaze, I let out a cold, mocking laugh. You wanted me to be docile and submissive, to obey you like a dog. Making me bow beneath Wendy Lynn was meant to humiliate me and break my spirit, until I became the soft, pliable version you desired. Ethan Xianyuan confidently believed I could never escape this chessboard, intending to calmly play the master while shaping me into a pawn he could manipulate at will. Little did he expect I'd flip the entire table. These past days, through my deliberate and subtle spreading of rumors, Ethan Xuanyuan's actions toward me at the concubine selection banquet had become common knowledge throughout the capital. The general's Manor's alliance with Prince Chun through marriage, coupled with repeatedly refusing Ethan Xuanyuan's apologies, makes their stance in court unmistakably clear. Moreover, deliberately ruining a young lady's virtue is no different from intentional murder. The general's manor and the Eastern Palace are now locked in a fight to the death. Watching his bright future crumble overnight, Ethan Xianyuan is naturally filled with regret. His desperate attempts to apologize to me stem less from deep affection and more from a desire to salvage his position. But what use is regret now? All I wish for now is his death. Serena Sue, do you have any idea how detestable you look with that sharp tongue of yours? If you had even half of Wanwan's gentleness, I wouldn't have resorted to such measures to provoke you. Ethan Xianyuan was not a man of good temper. Seeing that I remained unmoved despite his condescending apology, he reverted to his furious, humiliated state. Do you think Liu Xianyuan loves you? He's merely using you as a pawn against me. Liu Xianyuan, a mere illegitimate son, is no match for me. I'll give you one last chance. Return to me obediently, or don't blame me for showing no mercy and making you die alongside him. The emperor has always valued family bonds most. If word gets to him that the crown prince is threatening his own brother's life, it wouldn't bode well for you. After leaving those light words hanging, I turned to go back inside, but Ethan Xianyuan yanked me back abruptly. He threw me onto the soft couch and began roughly tearing at my clothes, his expression savage as a demon's. You belong to me. You can only be mine. He used all his strength, and for a moment I couldn't break free. Just as I was about to desperately kick him in the groin, Ethan Xianyuan's body went limp and he collapsed straight to the ground. As Ethan Xianyuan fell, it revealed the cold, murderous face behind him. That person knelt on the ground and introduced himself. This subordinate is Prince Chen's shadow guard. His Highness has gifted me to the princess consort. From today onward, you are this subordinate's only master. Without waiting for my stunned reaction, he continued, this petty scoundrel dared to plot against you. Master, how should he be dealt with? I await your instructions. Petty scoundrel. Makes sense. Royal shadow guards undergo the most rigorous training from childhood, their loyalty sworn to only one master. Since he is Liu Xianyuan's shadow guard, everyone else, no matter their status, is indistinguishable in their eyes. Even the emperor or empress, let alone a mere crown prince. Royal shadow guards are elite death warriors selected from thousands, typically serving only the emperor himself. No one else, regardless of nobility, may command them. It was clear the emperor had long made final arrangements for his most favored son, even if unforeseen events occurred. 2 highly skilled shadow guards could ensure his survival. Then, how did he die in his previous life? Such doubts were destined to remain unanswered, and I refused to dwell on events yet to unfold. Stating calmly, what is your name? Since this subordinate now belongs to the princess consort, it is for her to bestow a name. I see. Then you shall be called Su Shao. I decisively named the shadow guard and commanded, throw Ethan Xianyuan back to the crown prince's residence. If he harasses me again, turn him into a eunuch. Walls have ears. Someone must know Ethan Xianyuan came to see me. It is not yet time to beat a drowning dog. Let this be noted. We will settle accounts when he has completely fallen from power. Understood. The shadow guard bowed and dragged the unconscious Liu Xianyuan out like a dead dog, perhaps unable to bear seeing their beloved male lead suffer so much. The long, dormant bullet comments sprang back to life. The female lead is too ruthless. How could she treat the male lead like this? Dear protagonist, don't be fooled by Liu Xianyuan. He doesn't truly love you. He's just using you. Exactly. The villainous antagonist will stop at nothing to get what he wants. He just wants to steal the male lead's beloved. Dear protagonist, you mustn't let him succeed. Is that so? They all say Liu Xianyuan doesn't love me. But on the day our engagement was set, he laid out all his assets under my name, clear and transparent. He even gave me one of the 2 shadow guards the emperor exceptionally granted him. That kind of unreserved trust can't be faked. It feels far more intuitive than words. When someone claims to love you, you should be able to feel their love tangibly. Otherwise, it's just empty talk. As for a so-called male lead like Ethan Xianyuan, who constantly seeks to humiliate and suppress the woman he supposedly loves, whoever wants him can have him. I certainly don't. Unlike the monotonous barrage of comments defending and pleading for Ethan Xianyuan, this time there were rare opposing voices. Seriously, what kind of morals do you all have? The male lead tried to force himself on the female lead. Why? Feel sorry for a would be assailant. If it were me, I'd confiscate his tools of the trade on the spot. Exactly. Forced romance protagonists went out of style ages ago. Get lost and stay away. The big villain is way better. Attentive, considerate, and utterly sincere. I hereby crown him the new male lead. So there are still sensible people in the bullet comments after all. Whatever the reason, Ethan Xianyuan ultimately didn't dare to harass me again. The imperial decree had been issued. No matter how much he regretted it or how messy the situation became, he had to marry Wendy Lin as the crown princess. Although Ethan Xianyuan's influence had greatly diminished, he was still the crown prince. So the wedding was grand and spectacular. Wendy Lin's dowry stretched over 200 carriers, winding from one end of the street to the other in utmost splendor. Yet anyone with eyes could see that, given Grand Tutor Lin's family background, it was impossible for him to provide such a lavish dowry. Most of it was undoubtedly inflated. According to those who attended the wedding banquet, the crown prince wore a dark expression throughout, without a trace of a smile, making it seem as if he had married an enemy rather than a bride. I merely smiled faintly upon hearing this. The path was of his own choosing. He would have to walk it on his knees if necessary. The heavy blow Ethan Xianyuan suffered from me finally made the Empress realize that I truly would not turn back. With no other options, the Empress had no choice but to seek another noble lady from a prominent family to enter the Eastern Palace as a secondary consort, to consolidate the crown prince's position. Although Ethan Xianyuan insisted on granting Wendy Lin the position of principal consort despite her humble origins, earning praise for his devotion and righteousness, such compliments were merely superficial and held little weight. The great noble families, shrewd and discerning, could clearly see that the crown prince was an impulsive and short-sighted man, unfit for the heavy responsibility of heir apparent, and it was only a matter of time before he fell out of the emperor's favor. How could they ever allow their precious, delicately raised legitimate daughter to be ranked below Wendy Lin, the powerless daughter of a concubine from the Grand Tutor's household? Several noble families did propose marrying their daughters to Prince Liu Xianyuan as secondary consorts, but he rejected them without hesitation. Mentioning this matter, Liu Xianyuan grew indignant. Those people really know how to play their cards. They approached me right after being rejected by the Empress. If she found out, she'd be furious. Seeing my calm expression, his tone couldn't help but carry a hint of displeasure. They're openly trying to push concubines on me, yet you're not the least bit angry? We're not even married yet, and you already don't care about me? Heartless woman, this villain is far too emotional. What else could I do? I chose him, so I'll just have to coax him myself. My wedding with Liu Xianyuan was a grand spectacle, far more lively than the crown prince's wedding, with even the emperor and his favored consort attending in person. The difference in favor was plain to see. Ethan Xianyuan seemed provoked, wielding increasingly ruthless tactics in court, determined to bring down Liu Xianyuan at any cost. Liu Xianyuan no longer held back, launching fierce counterattacks. Ethan, now isolated and outmatched, soon faced defeat as evidence of his recommended officials accepting bribes and other crimes was presented directly to the emperor. He even repeatedly sent assassins after Liu. Had Liu not been extraordinarily fortunate to evade them, he would have been reincarnated years ago. The emperor, enraged, immediately issued an edict stripping Ethan of his title as crown prince, demoting him to Prince Dai, and confining him to Prince Dai's manor for life. The empress went to the Hall of Diligent Governance to plead for mercy, but, seizing a moment of the emperor's inattention, made a desperate assassination attempt. Though the emperor suffered only minor injuries, the hairpin the empress held was coated with a deadly poison, leaving both critically ill and near death. Before passing away, the emperor drafted a decree naming Liu Xianyuan as his successor. In the end, I still became the empress of the great Zhou Dynasty. The coronation ceremony was grand and magnificent. After the grand ceremony, a young eunuch came to report that the deposed crown prince Ethan Xianyuan wished to see me. I thought it over and ultimately agreed. Prince Dai's manor wasn't far from the palace, just a short carriage ride away. Perhaps it was the dazzling grandeur of my empress ceremonial robes, but Ethan Xianyuan stared at me in a daze for a long while. I didn't rush him, simply finding a stone bench to sit on myself. Due to his house arrest, There were no servants attending to him in Prince Di's manor. As for Wendy Lin, she had been sent away with a letter of divorce soon after Ethan Xianyuan was deposed. After a good while, Ethan Xianyuan finally snapped out of it, a bitter smile spreading across his face. I've lost, completely and utterly. My life is nearing its end. The emperor isn't worth tarnishing his reputation with fratricide for your sake. Naturally, he'll follow the late emperor's decree and let you live out your remaining days here in Prince Di's manor. I took one last look at Ethan Xianyuan and turned to leave. Between us, there was truly nothing left to say. Stepping out of the side courtyard, I looked up and saw Liu Xianyuan waiting outside. A gentle smile unconsciously curved my lips. Weren't you handling affairs at the Hall of Diligent Governance? What brings you here at this hour? Liu Xianyuan returned an equally tender smile. It's been too long since I last saw you. I missed you